Hello everyone, this is Tejashwini Gowda. In today's session, let's discuss about the house rent allowance, which is coming under the concept of the salary, and also uh, we'll move forward with the next concept as well. Now, let's discuss about the house rent allowance. So, first of all, this house rent allowance, the concept of this is coming under the chapter income from salaries. And this house rent allowance means when do you get this component? When do you get this allowance from the employer side? Is that when you are staying in a rented premises, if the employer wants to compensate to a certain extent for the rent which you are paying, then the allowance called as house rent allowance can be provided by employer to employee. Clear? Now, whatever the amount which you are getting as an allowance uh, from the employer's side, let's consider you are getting 3 lakh rupees as the house rent allowance from the employer. Now, the income tax states that if you are getting any allowance called as house rent allowance, then you will be getting exemption. That is, you need not pay tax to that extent of the exemption which you are getting. So, whatever the remaining amount you are going to get after subtracting the exemption will be your taxable HRA. Will be your taxable HRA. That is your taxable component of your house rent allowance. So, what we are going to discuss in this session is that we are going to understand what is the exemption which is provided under section 10 subsection 13A for the house rent allowance. Remember people, this section 10 subsection 13A speaks about the exemptions which is provided for house rent allowance. Clear? This is the section where we can claim exemption for whatever the house rent allowance received. Simple, clear, great. Now, whatever the HRA that you are going to receive, suppose in my example, the HRA received is 3 lakh. HRA received is HRA received is 3 lakh. Now we are going to get exemption under section 10 subsection 13A, right? 10 subsection 13A. How do you compute the exemption which you are getting under section 10 subsection 13A is that least of the following would be exempted. Least of the following would be exempted. What is those least of the following? First one, actual HRA received. So whatever the HRA which you have received over year, the same thing you are going to write. That is the least of the following would be exempted, means lower of the following would be exempted. Out of that, the first point being under the HRA is going to be HRA received, that is 3 lakh rupees. The second point is going to be the rent paid minus 10% of salary. What do I mean by rent paid? Very simple. Whatever the rent which you're paying for the landlord, that will be your rent paid amount over here. Whatever you're considering, you have to consider for the entire year because we are going to compute the income tax for the entire year, right? So the rent paid should be considered. If in the question they have given 10,000 is the rent paid, just multiply it by 12 months. If there is no other changes, multiplied by 12 months, you will get 1,20,000 finish. You record here 1,20,000. Now minus you are going, now minus 10% of the salary is what you're doing. Remember people, salary for the purpose of HRA or salary for the purpose of pension, for the purpose of leave encashment, salary for the purpose of gratuity has its own definition. Has its own definition. So, what do I mean by salary in HRA? It would be basic plus DA if it is in terms plus turnover commission. Basic salary would be given in the question. DA, you will be having two components, in terms, not in terms. In terms means forming part of retirement benefit, not in terms means not forming part of retirement benefits. We are going to consider only in terms of DA for the purpose of HRA salary computation plus turnover commission. You are going to add all these three. Suppose let's consider basic salary is 5 lakh, DA is 2 lakh and the turnover commission is 1 lakh. Total is 8 lakh, right? So the 8 lakh salary, 8 lakh multiplied by 10% would be the point in this question. The total is going to be 80,000. The difference of this one would be 40,000, which I am going to record here. 40,000 is what I am going to write as my second point. Third point would be 50% or 40% of the salary. When do you consider 50% of the salary? When it is metro cities, remember. You will either consider 50 or 40. It is not and, it is or. Either 50 or 40. 50 comes into picture when you are staying in Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai, Chennai, and you're paying rent over there. If it is other than metro cities, these four metro cities, whichever place it might be, it is going to be considered as 40% of salary. Clear? This 40% of the salary, just let's consider this fellow in this example is going to stay in some other place. Let's consider is staying in Bangalore. 40% of the salary is what he is going to consider. Salary for the purpose of HRA, we have already calculated. How much is it? 8 lakh. 8 lakh multiplied by 40%. How much would you get? 8 lakh into 40%, you would get 3 lakh 20,000. 3 lakh 20,000 would be the answer. In this case, I'm going to consider 40% of the salary. Right? Now, you guys tell me, least of the following would be exempted, right? Which is the least among this point? The least is 40,000. Rent paid minus 10% of the salary is going to be 40,000. 40,000 is the exemption which you are going to take under section 10 subsection 30A. The difference of 2,60,000 shall be your taxable HRA. Clear? Shall be your taxable HRA. Remember one point when you're considering the calculations of your HRA, exemptions under section 10 subsection 13A would be available. This exemption is available only if you're opting for this normal tax, that is your old tax regime. If you're opting for new tax regime, then you're not going to get this 10 subsection 13A. 115 BAC, if you're opting in for, then you're not going to get exemption under section 10 subsection 13A. Clear? See. If you have your own house or live in your own space where you are not paying any rent, then you can't get exemption. That is what I told. If you have to claim exemption for HRA, you have to pay out of your pockets, people. If you don't pay out of your pockets, then you are not going to get any exemption. So, to be eligible for exemption, you need to be spending money on the rent for the place where you are living in. Simple. Now, this is about your HRA allowance, that is house rent allowance concept.